Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with warm goat cheese and peach tartine. That's right, and all a tartine is a fancy French word for an open-faced sandwich. Really the same thing, but if you call it tartine, you do get to charge a couple more dollars. And by the way, August is National Goat Cheese Month, and one of my many missions on this earth is to somehow get Americans to eat more goat cheese. And besides that, peaches are just unbelievably awesome right now. So we're going to pair those together to make an incredibly delicious and quick summer lunch. So step one, we're going to need some nice thick sliced bread. I'm using a loaf of French bread. This is sourdough, which is always a nice choice. And when I say thickly cut, I mean it. These should be between 3/4 and an inch thick. What's that, 7/8? I've never been that good with fractions. I usually screw those up like 5/3 of the time. It's terrible. All right, so we're going to take some thickly cut bread and we're going to toast it. By the way, this is much, much better if it's day old or even worse. All right, this works better with stale bread. I tried using fresh and it didn't work as well, but you'll read about that in the blog post. But anyway, once that's sliced, we're going to throw it in the toaster to give it a head start. Oh, and one quick pro tip, let the toast cool for a second before you try to pull it out, because that was fairly painful. But anyway, we're going to transfer that onto a sheet pan. We're going to douse it liberally with olive oil. Yes, do both sides, please. And once that's set up, we are on to our goat cheese spread. So I have about 4 ounces of fresh goat cheese, also known as chèvre, which I believe is the word for goat. And that seems like it would be confusing in France, but anyway, not my problem. So some fresh goat cheese, I've left that out at room temperature for about a half hour, so it's easier to work with. And then to the cheese, we're going to add some freshly picked thyme. By the way, this is why you have to have a thyme plant in your windowsill or garden. You could find yourself with peaches, cheese, and bread, but you're probably not going to walk to the store to buy a bunch of thyme to get like 2 teaspoons. But if you have in the backyard, you just pick a little and it's so easy. And by the way, as I'm picking this, I'm kind of squeezing those little leaves together to release those oils. It just smells incredible. I mean, you make this, you're going to have the best smelling fingertips in the neighborhood. And just assume that. Don't go trying to prove it. And then after the thyme, we're going to add a whole bunch of freshly ground black pepper. And if you're thinking, didn't he do some individual peach cobbler a few years back that featured peaches with black pepper and some herbs? You are correct, and it was incredibly delicious. And yes, that was one of the inspirations for this lunch. And that is pretty much it. We don't really need any salt. There's enough salt in the cheese. If you want to put a shake of cayenne in there, who am I to tell you not to? So if you want to warm it up a little bit, go ahead. You are the dean of your tartine. All right, at that point, we're going to take a spatula and mix that up until it's all incorporated. And we want it nice and soft and spreadable. And then go ahead and divide it between your 2 toasts. And as you're doing this step, you only have 2 things to worry about. Number 1, that you get the same amount on each. And number 2, that you spread it all the way to the absolute edge of the toast. Because we're going to finish this under the broiler. If there's too much exposed bread, it will burn. And it just won't be as good, okay? So spread it all the way to the edge, just like you see me doing here. And then once you've done that, you're going to top it with 3 beautifully thick slices of the sweetest, ripest summer peach you can find. That is just a sight to behold. And it's going to take all your willpower to just not eat it right now, which, by the way, would not be a bad idea. Totally delicious. But try to hold off because it's just so much better warm. And of course, if you don't have access to peaches and you can't find or don't like goat cheese, feel free to substitute with order a pizza. Okay, final step before these go under the broiler. We're going to give the tops a little drizzle with olive oil and then just a little sprinkling of salt. It's going to bring out the sweetness in those peaches. And that is ready for the oven. And by oven, I mean broiler. So I'm going to brown that about 6 inches under the broiler, which is set to high heat. And it's going to take a couple minutes. But you'll know when you're done. The top and edges will be kind of browned and the cheese will be heated all the way through. And that warm goat cheese and peach tartine is done. Look at that. Just an amazing combination of flavors and, of course, textures. You get that crispy edged bread, that mild, creamy, but somewhat tangy cheese, which is balanced beautifully by those sweet, juicy peaches. Just fantastic. And my only criticism, as I touched on earlier, the bread I used was too fresh, so it was not as crunchy as I wanted. But we can fix that, and you'll read about that in the blog post. So anyway, if you love goat cheese, and we're looking for another delicious way to enjoy it, this is it. Or maybe you've never had goat cheese before, and this inspires you to try it, which I really, really, really hope you do, since goat cheese really is an incredible product. It's like cream cheese with benefits. So I really do hope you give this a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.